good at home mostly, and they can stink it up on the road. Taylor Cornelius, hot and cold quarterback. He had 321 yards and 3 TDs. Texas is not built to come back. They were down 17-7 in the first quarter. Then they were down 31-14 by the end of the second quarter. They're just not built to come back like a West Virginia could, like a Texas Tech, like an Oklahoma. They just can't do it. Florida versus Georgia. Well, the big game of the week. God, we almost hit that under. Georgia scored that touchdown at the end. I was just kind of hoping they'd run the clock out. Bad handicap on our spot. Georgia, like I said, turned it up when they needed to. They won by, 19 points? Yeah. It's Jake Fromm, 240 yards and 3 TDs. DeAndre Swift, 104 yards and 1 TD. You saw some athletes when you saw Georgia, how they swarm, how fast they are. You saw some serious athletes. Now, Florida's got some athletes, too, just not as many as Georgia yet. Now, Dan Mullen there, love that coach. I think he's going to do just fine. I think in 3 years, Florida's the team we want to be on. And, Washington State versus Stanford. Even in the letdown spot, Washington State comes back and scores 17 in the fourth quarter. They're built to come back, this team, this Leach team. And ends up winning at 41-38. I was scared to hell out of that because Stanford was favored by 3.5, and I had Washington State better in my power rankings. I stayed away from this. A lot of people picked Stanford, but, they were wrong. The other letdown spot that we nailed was Michigan State versus Purdue. Purdue beating Ohio State going into a huge letdown spot. And guess what? They won the freaking game. It's Michigan State won. And had we not tried to middle that game, we would have made more off of it. But I had to take that half point for Purdue in the second half. But the garbage touchdown lost it for us. But like I said, you cannot discount the letdown spot ever. Don't ever do that. Texas A&M versus Mississippi State. Now, we lost this one. There was a lot of money on Texas A&M, and it wasn't just public. There was sharp money on this. So they weren't exactly a public dog, but bad spot for them. Mississippi State had to come back and win. Nick Fitzgerald led in rushing at 88 yards and passing at 241 yards. I thought Texas A&M could have came back this game, but they didn't. Kellen Mond had 232 yards, 1 TD, and 1 interception. So, they're kind of like SEC's kind of grouped up too. Mississippi State, Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, Florida. They're all pretty close to each other. I think Georgia's a step above them, like I said before, and then Alabama's the big step. Iowa versus Penn State. Now, this game was interesting because Iowa should have won this game. Nate Staley had more passing yards than Tracy McSorley. Now, McSorley went out and was hurt, and Tommy Stevens came in a couple plays, and McSorley was back and forth. But Iowa outgained Penn State in total yards, but they threw that pick in on the 4-yard line, ready to score a touchdown, which sealed the game. There goes your money lines right there. But they did cover, depending on what number you got. 6.5. They lost by 6. But there you go. They outplayed Penn State and lost. In Penn State. You can make a very good argument here that Iowa is just as good as Penn State. Yeah, especially if McSorley is going to be out. I mean, we'll have to monitor that injury a little bit. All right. The next game that I think I quick want to mention. Oh, NC State Syracuse. That sucker went over, and we were pretty good by halftime on that one, on that bet. Texas Tech versus Iowa State went way over, 71 points. Texas Tech was in this game, but Iowa State had a great third quarter. I'm going to give you a bet I'm going to take right now, and the numbers aren't even out yet. Wake Forest is going to be playing Syracuse. I'm taking the over. I don't care if it's 80 points. I'm taking it this week. As soon as that comes out Monday afternoon, I'm hitting that one. Nebraska versus Bethune-Cookman. Yeah, right, dude. Arizona State at USC. Let's close it out with this one. What a great game for Herm Edwards. USC started coming back in the third quarter. They did. They were actually ahead by a little bit, and then Arizona State just stayed strong at the end and ended up closing this game out, winning 38-35. What a big game for them. Now this Arizona State-Utah game is going to be huge this week. Huge. You know? Jake Sears was actually USC's passer this game. I think Daniels was hurt or something, but he went 20 for 28. That's not even bad at all. 2 TDs, 235 yards. It's just that Arizona State pounded the ball. They didn't give USC the ball. Time of possession. Okay? 32 minutes to 27 minutes. Time of possession. That's how Arizona State won against USC. 283 rushing yards. All right, let's get into my Big Ten power ratings. So, Ohio State stays at 25 points, better than the average team. Michigan stays at 22. Neither of these teams played. Penn State, 18. Iowa, 14.5. No changes from last week. Now, like I said, you can make an argument that Iowa's better, but they end up losing right around where the spread was. So no change. Michigan State, 13.5, is right under Iowa by a point. Wisconsin, I have them as like the sixth best team in the Big Ten now. Downgraded them from 14 to 13. They are not that good, and I would consider even taking them a little lower. You just can't bet on them. They are a team that you can't bet on this year. You don't know what the hell's going to happen either. It's hard to bet over totals with that. We barely squeaked out that under on that Northwestern game. Purdue, no change really because this was their letdown spot. They're still 8 points better than everybody else. ESPN's higher on Purdue. They have them 11.8, and Team Rankings has them at 12, but I have them at 8 just because their defense isn't there yet. But Jeff Brom is trending up. Maryland, 7.5 points. Upgraded them slightly. They've been back and forth all year. They just can't beat the big teams either, or even score against them. Northwestern, 6.5. Northwestern beating Wisconsin. I upgraded them a point. But there's something wrong with them. They have a hard time coming back against teams too. If they're down by 10 points, they have a very hard time. Now they did it against Nebraska, but that's Nebraska and that terrible defense. You know, I do not like what they did at Rutgers. Nebraska stays at 5 points, playing Bethune-Cookman. Minnesota, 5 points, upgraded slightly for taking care of business against Indiana. I'm keeping Indiana at 3.5 because Indiana, fought pretty well in Minnesota. Illinois, -9, downgraded them another point for getting destroyed against Maryland. And Rutgers, even though they didn't play, I took them down another half point to -13.5 for just sucking so bad this year. All right. And actually, I was a little bit lower on them. Team Rankings has them minus 16.4. So I wasn't as low as them. So I thought that maybe I was a little too high on them at -13. Let's get into the betting spots here for next week. Letdown spots. Georgia at Kentucky. It's kind of a letdown spot because they took care of business against a rival, Florida. Washington State hosting Cal, but both teams lost. Both teams won last week. And I forgot to mention Washington lost to Cal by 12-10 game. Terrible game. But, both of these teams, Washington State, they're killing it, but are they going to come flat here? Who knows? I'm going to look at that line, though, and possibly make a totals play. Notre Dame could be a little flat versus Northwestern, and it's just because it's a spot. They took care of business. Are they taking Northwestern seriously? I don't know. ASU hosting Utah, but both teams really need this game. So I know ASU just beat USC, but I'm not sure if this will be a letdown spot, but I wanted to mention it. And Oklahoma State at Baylor is a letdown spot for them beating Texas. Okay. So there you have it. There's not a ton of letdown spots here. Florida hosting Missouri is a get-up spot. I think Florida's going to, after that loss, put it together. Stanford at Washington for both teams after losing last week. Another get-up spot is Texas against West Virginia. But, that's a tough game right there. I don't know what side I'm going to like on that one. NC State versus Florida State after they got their butts kicked. They lost to Clemson a couple weeks back, really bad. Then they lost to Syracuse. So are they going to try to put it together against Florida State? Texas A&M at Auburn. Purdue is a get-up spot versus Iowa, but it's for both teams really because Iowa lost as well. So these teams will be duking it out. South Florida at Cincinnati is a get-up spot. They finally lost to Houston, and it wasn't close. We are on the Houston side there for our members. Look ahead spots. Wisconsin could be looking past Rutgers to Penn State. They might bench a bunch of people just because get them healthy. So think about that. We'll look at the only side that you could take is Rutgers, in my opinion. And it's a terrible side. Ohio State, looking past Nebraska to Michigan State. Maybe not due to their loss against Purdue, but I don't know. Who knows? They have a big Michigan State game in a couple weeks. Georgia could be looking past Kentucky to Auburn. So Georgia's in a sandwich spot here, possibly really flat against Kentucky. So that's the only side you can take is Kentucky here, I think. Oklahoma State looking past Baylor to Oklahoma. Very possible. Oklahoma State is kind of in a sandwich too after beating Texas. I mean, sucks betting on Baylor, but they might be kind of in a get-up spot themselves after getting their butts kicked. And Michigan State could be looking past Maryland to Ohio State. Very, very possible there. Especially Michigan State wants revenge against Ohio State. This is a very legit look-ahead spot. Now let's get into some fantasy football with D Nasty. All right, we are back for fantasy football week 9 with our guy D Nasty. How you doing, Dave?
Good. How you doing, Kiev? Good to be back.
It's great. I pretty decent this week in fantasy. I was a 2-2, 4-0 last week, which was nice. So I'm definitely in it in all my leagues.
Nice.
There's some interesting things happened today, interesting developments. Hugh Jackson of the Browns got fired, finally. It's like, why are you firing him now in the middle of the season?
No kidding.
It's like...
That's a long time ago, or beginning of the year before they even started.
And the team's playing for him, at least. They're against the Steelers. They're doing okay. Isn't that bad? And
No.
then they go and fire him and the offensive coordinator right in the middle of the season. Talk about leaving him with nothing now. I mean,
Exactly.
God, that's just a messed up organization there. They should have just let him coach till the end. It's not like they're going to do anything. The only thing that would have happened is the players would have improved a little bit, and then they could have fired him. Possibly even got Belichick or somebody for next year. I hear that. There's always rumors that Belichick wants to go back there and finish the job he couldn't do before and all that. But
That'd be pretty sweet, though.
Oh, that would. But Lincoln Riley
Over Greg Williams instead, the bounty hunter guy.
Yeah, right. I think Lincoln Riley is a big name out of the Oklahoma coach, though. So
He said he's not leaving, though. They already asked him, and there was already a report out today saying he's not leaving.
I would never leave the top Big 12 job. I mean,
No way.
It's like, why would you go to a place where there's an even playing field and you have to actually draft people in turn when you can just go to Oklahoma and recruit everybody you want except for what Alabama takes? It's
Exactly.
there's no reason to He's always got the field in his advantage. So I don't know why people would leave coaching college. I guess it's